Then just remember what the handouts.
Yeah, straight. Yes. Since each person wanted to be their own slides, or do you want me to just do something?
I think I'll do my own piece so that I put my own piece.
They're hot.
I have 15 more minutes.
I don't have a copy.
Right, it goes more.
You have a copy of your slides.
No, I was anticipating that we were standing.
You can stand and get off. I think I will stand during when I talk. And feel more like.
And I will see them.
There's no rules.
Okay.
Oh, there is a word. You know what, I know that.
Yeah. We're standing there.
That's not, you know, but like, first day that I was here. You know, I keep getting my thought.
Well, what? No, I think it's like completely booked. The speed that you posted.
Are you on the council or are you running the council? Or you're just on?
No, I chair.
Out at the national conference, at the national downtown conference.
I was going to go,
Yeah.
but I didn't understand the time. Like, I was like, oh, you're getting up soon. I'm like, oh, it's a big late. And I'm like,
No, I mean, it's gone. You know what I mean? Like, you gotta, yeah.
She gonna be on that? Julie, your goal is to take a picture and each one of us present. Yeah. Second that.
Oh, you saw my name on here. That's how you.
Oh,
We just need to
Oh.
hold it where she is.
Her?
We should do it. I don't know what.
Oh, you too. I'm leaving. I have to fly out. Liz is in Chicago. My daughter's in Chicago at Miss Amazing. How she doing? What's she up to? Right now, she's walking Shack in Chicago from a McDonald's. Watching my Life 360.
Get there?
Yeah.
Don't make no bad choices on the
We're
way.
next to your house.
And she's gonna start everybody else. So my oldest daughter is like 14, and got on the other side, we're gonna figure a person again, and now it's here, I'm picking up right on later. Go when I know that children's license. Yeah, I felt like we were doing really good, and now I'm like, I feel like we're right back to the.
I think the last time I saw you, should have started.
Yeah, but like, we should try to like.
Sure, you can come. You can have sure.
Well, I really appreciate that, you know, today.
Oh, that's my computer. Julie, do we want to go and
Can we get a picture?
Let me take a picture again. Would you all here? We want to go in front of that NACDD sign. Here. I mean, your eye was, yeah. I would say I'm the one that's on board. Maybe you are. There's been Roxanne. Roxanne is going first. I think we'll all get off the plane. I didn't even see about these. Most amazing. Yeah. People are learning birth and center. So I'd like to. Yes. A colorful. I'm very.
I don't wear colors.
I don't either. That's why when I saw this, I was like, do it, branch out. You need a little color in your closet.
I'm
usually very, very No, I don't think it's very out of place. As you said.
Oh, yeah, no, sir.
Okay, do you think it works?
Oh, it's from.
That's the Zoom. I want it to be good. Oh, yeah,
He has it loaded on his.
They want to get the trouble. 353. I like the heat coming off this thing. I'm still
I
cold.
think I want to get a picture of you soon.
Oh my gosh. That Jen Sear knows what's up. There's a photo from the homecoming court nomination, whatever, and it's a beautiful line of all these girls with their legs crossed exactly the same way. And there's me with my legs crossed the opposite way and Carly without crossing her legs. And I think about it anytime I do this. You're like, let's all get order here.
Thank you for pulling us together. We need that.
Hey, Lori, look at me.
Don't you want to be in this picture?
I kind of like to just hide in the back, like I'm not really.
That's why I tried to hide too, but I'm not so good at it. All right.
For goodness sakes.
Sorry, got one minute. I know you're in like, what am I doing now? You know, it's see the line now. Like, I think about it all the time, and my mom was the one that figured it out. She's like, you can't have the foot, and then it's like, too oddball.
Yeah, I mean, there's already, we have already the scenario.
What?
You already seen it.
Oh, yeah, some people are going to, yeah. I'm gonna stand and then I'm going up here and
I'll probably with this, but we'll talk.
yeah, I'm sitting, so no worries.
Hey, that's okay. Yeah. What's that? Yeah, I know, I was like. The fake ones for me. I feel all the time when you go places, people are like, you're in a regular thing like this, but then my session is about reading. It's gonna be in the day, they're like. Okay, then it's like, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I had no clue what you're saying. There's so many good sessions.
I would love to do it, a little bit, but I always. But it's so long.
And it's like kind of halfway.
I don't know. Well, you're like, guys are just.
Well, no.
You gotta see. You don't have to. That's what everyone just. I said, you need to say, how are you? You guys were actually, I don't know if you were there, you were all sitting down below and you came back. Oh, yeah. I might even see you guys.
You're back here. Time it would happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, right now, probably not. So-
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, it'd be embarrassing.
It's embarrassing all the time.
They had, it wasn't just a now sales girl, that they have so much more things that.
I was thinking of already.
Oh.
Just can't hear anybody unless you speak it into the mic.
Thanks for asking.
That you always, yeah.
They're gonna carry on, I am gonna start speaking. And I.
Honest, I'm very fair.
You talk to me. Like, I think every time we standing here, I taught an English girl that I was.
Yes.
Oh, no,
I thought you read,
I did not. She was talking about how loud I speak.
I like being of service to others.
You are like, you are the dream. You need an idea in yourself, and you guys together can do literally anything.
I'm a doer, I'm not a get.
Yeah, but you're so.
That's
good
what I
at it.
did too.
Yeah.
Because I'm the doer and you're the idea.
Delegate the idea. I have an idea.
The power.
That's why I just surround myself with people that gives me the ideas.
Like, yeah, just like. Thanks. No, I was like, I didn't know about you guys until whatever. And then it's like, now I like check the website every so often.
Oh,
to see,
I
like, what's
try.
going on.
It's I also have to Jake.
Yeah. Hey, I saw it's
So-
revamped. It looks
you.
Yeah, and so I'm also doing, okay, gotcha. 1 minute. Yeah.
We could record it.
It's being recorded, I believe.
Okay, great. Yeah. Thank God.
Kristen, I'll tell you, tell me when it's time to go.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the session on our peer-to-peer model in North Dakota. I'm Julie Horntvedt. I'm the director of the council in North Dakota, and with me today is a wonderful group of people who had a brainchild about 10 years ago on how to create a more inclusive environment for students at a high school in Bismarck. And since then, it has grown to middle school, high school. We have some college programs, but beyond having inclusion in school, it's fostered friendships and real community inclusion, and it's changing students' lives and parents' lives. And we hope you learn a lot about it today. And if you are interested in developing something like this in your state, please reach out and we'd love to help you. And between our speakers here today, you are free to ask questions because one of our speakers has to go to the airport. So between each speaker, we'll have maybe about 5 minutes of questions. So feel free to ask then. And there is resources on your table in paper, but we can get you anything electronic as well. So to kick it off, we're going to start with Roxanne.
Thanks for making the choice to come here today. Really appreciate it. As Julie mentioned, we are going to just walk you a little bit through the origins of this, and then everybody's going to take a separate piece of that agenda that you see up at the PowerPoint. I have the wonderful opportunity of watching this all from the beginning. And so I just made the comment that the ripple effects from what we've seen happening that started locally and now we're seeing on a statewide basis is phenomenal. I guess we all decided that the true data on this is that it all feels really good. So I'm going to tell you about this from a perspective of being a parent. My daughter, Elizabeth, journeys through life with Down syndrome. We knew that before she was born. And I had a little bit of disability advocacy and knowledge before she was born. So that was fairly beneficial in kicking this off quickly. To be an advocate for her situation. She went to high school in 2014 and she went out for cheerleading. So I went to the first pep rally. And I walk in the gym. I'm early because I'm nervous. Where do you sit if you're a parent? And right behind me were all of these people who use wheelchairs for mobility coming to the pep rally with their instructional aids. And they came in the door and they sat right there, right by the door. And then pretty soon the whole student body comes in. And I was like, oh. And then I realized, well, they're all sitting with their classes, right? The seniors sit together, the juniors sit together. I was like, I wonder when they're all going to go sit with their classes. Well, they never did. So I'm new. It's probably September, and I'm calling my friend Sarah Bohr, who is Elizabeth's new case manager at the high school, and saying, Sarah, what is up? Why isn't everybody sitting with their classes? And she goes, I know, Roxanne. So it was really my first foray into going, oh, maybe there's time for a little change at Century High School in Bismarck, North Dakota. And one of the things that I had always done in raising her was really trying to watch what everybody was doing at her age. I had a son who was 8, so he's a little different, little off by 8 years, but I was trying to keep a bead on like what's everybody else doing and how can we do that too. Maybe it's just doing it, or maybe it's doing it with some accommodations. And so I wanted every environment that she was moving into to be ready for that. Like, bring it on. This is like, we're going to engage in chess club if that's what she wants to do. Guess it was cheerleading at the moment, but so fast forward maybe a few months, the winter formal's coming up, and I'm pretty connected to other families her age, a little older, a little younger. And somebody calls me and says, "Hey, is Elizabeth going to the winter formal?" And I was like, didn't even know it was happening. I don't know about the winter formal. And then one of the moms that called said, "Well, my son needs total assistance, and he really wants to go to the formal. What do you think we should do?" And I was like, "Well, I think you should call the school and see if he can get assistance to go to the winter formal." It really was the start of this where we went, let's all have coffee and let's talk about what we know and what we don't know about being now students of high schoolers, and how would we want it to be different. And so we called Sarah again, poor Sarah. She was her first year at Century too. And said, we've all been talking. We don't really like it how it is. Could it be different? And I'm telling you, folks, I have been in the disability advocacy field for a long time. I have never seen change happen this fast and now be this long lasting. That was in January of 2015, probably. And we didn't just want a club. We didn't want just a situation where our individuals with disabilities were matched with students who didn't have disabilities. We wanted more. We wanted education. We wanted involvement, authentic interaction. And so literally, and Sarah's going to talk about it more, but by the next fall, we had a peer-to-peer disability leadership course embedded into the curriculum of the high school. And really a lot of kudos to Sarah and her team at Century for moving that forward, because, it has to go to the state and probably to the President of the United States to be approved, I'm sure. So I think we all kind of stayed engaged as a parent group with the school. They were so receptive because sometimes that is not the case. And because it was all, I think we were working in step with each other, we saw it actualized, right? It really came true. And definitely there were a lot of opinions around the table about how maybe this should go. But by the fall of 2015, things got kicked off. I just want to say a couple words as being a parent and some of the reactions that we've had as some of us have aged out of that area, and then we're getting questions from parents who are going to have kids going to high school, is this whole concept of dignity of risk, right? So I got a call from a parent whose child was just going in as a freshman, and she said 2 girls just showed up at our house and took Lachlan to Kroll's for a shake. And she's like, "Is that okay?" And I was like, "Yeah, that's great. That's so awesome." He had never, ever been with anybody else except for his parents or his respite providers. He had never been to a birthday party. He had never been to another child's house without his parents. That was the first time that he had ever gotten to do that. And we all had to breathe together. The mom and I were breathing on the phone, breathe in, breathe out. There's such a thing as Life 360. but it really is hard as as a parent to start to dissociate from your child, to try to, somehow take it down, that enmeshment that you have developed to survive together, right? To grow up. But at some point, the work is about separating from your parents. And that becomes really different, I think, in situations when individuals need a lot of care. So in this process, in engaging with, you know, um, teens that don't have disabilities, all of us as parents have had to take really deep breaths, and the school districts too, like to say, okay, we're going to the football game. Sarah will tell a really good story about that too. And but the amount of things that you learn from that comes from, just jamming out in the car while you're driving somewhere, or, having to negotiate getting into a restaurant when there aren't any adults around, like just trying to figure it out. And I think also the ability to become leaders, everybody involved, individuals with disabilities, individuals without disabilities, this process of being able to be in the world together without, interfering adults, because we can have a really heavy footprint as parents, as instructional aides, as teachers. We can have really heavy footprints, and sometimes not very fun. We're not very fun. I think when I was 16, I'm not really interested in hanging out with my mom, who was 45 all the time. So it definitely took all of us on board to really grasp this concept. And I just wanted to tell you a little bit about my kiddo. And one of the things that is super cool about today, I got really emotional actually thinking about this, is Jordan started, we probably met Jordan when you guys were what, 5, 6-ish at dance. My daughter and Jordan were friends. They both were involved in the peer-to-peer program at Century High School. And now Jordan's here presenting. Elizabeth works for Dr. Garnes at the AUCD, North Dakota's AUCD. And I do believe that it's about having opportunities for leadership and opportunities for experiences. And so again, the ripple effects of this. But the things that came out of the peer-to-peer opportunities for my daughter really was about truly believing that there was a sense that she belonged there. She belonged at Century High School, and she belonged fully. So full that when she did head out, like she just had that concept that that's what you do. You go to school at this place and then you belong. So she transitioned to a post-secondary ed program at Minot State University, and she took herself off for cheerleading tryouts. The staff had no clue that she was going to go try out. She didn't ask permission, which why would, she's 19 years old. So like, why you ask permission? And she ended up being on the varsity cheer squad for the Minot State Beavers. But I think, again, that heavy footprint that we can have as family members and teachers and instructional aides often gets in ways of really being able to make life choices. And, she's made choices about things that I would have never even thought would have been in front of her, or she would have chosen the way she's chosen. So I do think these are going to tell you about the content, the meat of the program, but I'm exceedingly, as I look back, it's just so thrilling to think about where we started 10 years ago and the outcomes for many, many of all the students with disabilities and students without disabilities. And you're going to hear about that now. So I am going to hand this over to Sarah. Oh, I'm sorry. Do you have any questions?
Questions? No?
Here's
Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
As a person with a disability, is there anything that we can do to ease the concerns of parents, especially our own?
Good one.
Yes.
You mean right now or before or later? I don't really know how to answer that. I think one of the most effective tools that my daughter has done for me is to say that that's my business. To be quite honest, or mom, I'll make that decision, right? Or to ask for help. Right. I think that that's the other thing as you grow and mature, like learning to ask for help. I think we all struggle with it, right? Because, right. Yeah, we all struggle with that. And so I do think that what it's dripping in here. I'm gonna get electrocuted. Is that if people can I really do think it's probably your first act of advocacy is right there with your parents. And sometimes parents have to get that help to separate too. You're welcome.
I think we have a
It's tough
question back
work.
here. Sorry, everyone. I'm built for comfort, not for speed. So thank you for bearing with me.
Hi, my name is Rachel. I'm from the Delaware DD Council. I'm also a mom of a middle schooler.
Mm.
And my question to you is when you got this program started, and you made it a class, what was the steps of that? So you would have to go, did you go to your district board, your state board? Like, what is the process in completing that?
Yeah, well, your job as a mom is to be an agent of change at this moment and start the poking. But Sarah's going to talk about that right now. And it could be very different, actually in each school district, but and in each state. But I mean, generally speaking, in order to get a course into a school district, there is going to be a process. Yeah.
Any other questions? Yeah,
I ever late, I wanna know if she's your mom.
no, no. She's just a really great mentor to me. She is not my mother, but I would take her as my mom.
Oh,
No,
I
just want to know. Yeah, her daughter. Her daughter.
the panel. Okay.
Yeah.
In Chicago. That's why I'm tracking her in 360.
Yeah. Yes. This is Liz. This is Roxanne's daughter, who I got the pleasure of being her case manager for 4 years. And we're going to talk about that. Any other questions?
All about who we are.
Yeah.
All about.
Yep.
Yeah.
I am Sarah, who Roxanne has referenced multiple times now. Roxanne is a great mentor of mine, but yeah, 10 years ago, I walked into Century High School with her because I had been a special education teacher at the elementary school. And they were like, hey, Sarah, we're moving you to the high school. It makes sense. You're the head volleyball coach, all the things. And I was like, but I don't know diddly about transition. And they're like, meh, you'll figure it out. Which I soon realized was very different than the elementary level. And my coordinator said, you're going to be Elizabeth's case manager. And I was like, okay. I was like, Roxanne, I don't. She's like, it's fine, Sarah, we'll do this together. And so it was, like she said, December of 2014. She had the conversation with me about the pep rally, and I looked at her and I said, I don't know, I just got here, like you. And so, yeah, and as you can tell from these pictures, this is a current picture of one of our student sections at state basketball being led by a young man with Down syndrome. It's just the norm now at our school. But yeah, and so we started this 10 years ago, which is crazy to think. We met with a group of parents, teachers, and administrators and sat down around at a table and just said, we want to make change. What is this going to look like? And So from December until March, we did a ton of research. We knew what our three pillars were, and I kind of talk about that at the bottom, but the first thing we wanted is we wanted it to encompass all disability areas. A lot of the research we did, there was great things, but it was maybe only for kids with Down syndrome or only for kids with autism. And with our demographic, we wanted to make sure it was all areas, including your kids with an invisible disability, your learning disabilities, your emotional disorder, all the things. We didn't want it to just be, one area. So that was one pillar. The other pillar that we wanted is we wanted education for our mentors who are our general education students. We did not want to just say, hey, show up, play a board game, walk away. We wanted there to be true, tried and true education for our general education students alongside our students with disabilities. So that was our second pillar. And then the overarching thing was we wanted school to no longer be a place where they went, but a place where they belonged. And in order to belong at the high school, so much happens after that 3:30 time. For us, our school day ends at 3:30. So much happens after that. Basketball games, football games, school dances. So a big part of us was how do we get our students right alongside of our students with disabilities at these activities. Because yes, they could go to the football game. They didn't want to sit with me. I'm their teacher. They didn't want to sit with an aide, that type of thing. And so those were really our big pillars. And the young man she's talking about or talked about earlier who went out for ice cream is right here in this picture. And that's actually this summer. That's the school year wasn't going on. That was the beginning of the summer. They got him and they got him to Cherryberry and had a grand old time. So that's really how we started. And when it came to the education side of it, I always joke because my husband's also a high school teacher and he teaches computer programming and cybersecurity and all the things. And I'm like, and math. And I'm like, well, he's given an algebra textbook. And I remember looking across the table at these guys and my administrator and saying, well, what are you going to teach? Or what am I teaching? And they're like, you'll figure it out. Okay, here we go. So 10 years have gone by. And I can say some of the best things, the why behind our course, communication of events. Roxanne talked about how she didn't know about winter formal. And so now, because a lot of times there's like posters are hung up or things are now out on social media like crazy, and not all of our students are able to see or access those things. So how do we get communication? So that was a big part of us. We wanted support during the school day and outside of the school day. So how do we get kids sitting with their classes at pep rallies? How do we get kids not sitting at, oh, there's the special education table at lunch? Like, how do we embed them? That was a big thing. And then again, like I said, extracurricular activities was huge for us. And building natural social skills in a natural setting. When you take a friend out for ice cream, what is appropriate conversation? What is an appropriate way to pay? All those little things that sometimes I think the community takes, for granted. We're teaching those skills right alongside, which is really great. And so there's there's a picture, him and the first ice cream. So anyways, and just building appropriate friendships. How do we build and guide? And I could go on and on and on about stories of kids. Now that I've been doing this for 10 years, getting pictures, we just talked about this. I couldn't go to the wedding, but Jordan and Roxanne and Liz, they were all at a wedding, and it was of a general education student of mine was getting married, and they were all there together. And this is now 10 years out. And so just really, really beautiful things, but that was really the why behind our course. So Jordan can attest to this. She's a former student of mine, which makes me like full circle. But so those are really the big things behind it. And I remember after the first year, all the students were like, okay, Bor, what's next? And I was like, I just started. I don't know. What do we want to do next? And so went to the back to the drawing board with my administrators and some input from parents. And so students now can take 3 years of what's called peer-to-peer leadership at Century High School. The first year is what I just explained. They are in a classroom with me. They're learning about all different disability areas, people first language. There's a picture, I go back here, of them learning how to use communication devices. I have kids programming communication devices as they're on their way to Starbucks, so their friends can order their own Starbucks, things like that. So they're learning a variety of things on top of leadership skills. And then 2 days a week, we do what Fun Day Friday is one of them, but we're just combined and we're immersing those social skills together. And so the other day we might talk about personal space when we're combined. And then Friday, they're playing Uno, but working on the personal space skills and that type of thing. So it was up. What are we going to do next? And so, like I said, went to the drawing board, and now kids can take up to 3 years of peer-to-peer. And so as long as they've taken the first year from me, they then go on to year 2. We are a high school that runs on an 8-period schedule a day. And so year 2 students are placed in a general education class with a peer instead of an adult aide. And it is beautiful. I could go on and on about the stories. I have a ton of teachers who now say, no offense to so-and-so, but I want a peer, because the other peers are much more welcoming. I had a situation where I had a young man with autism in PE first period this last year, and I was like short for some reason first period. And the PE teacher simply said, don't worry about it. So-and-so's in this class. He'll be supported completely fine, because it's just changed the culture of our school. And so as a year 2 student, peer-to-peer floats on your schedule as a 9th period. And then I go in just like I do with all of our instructional aides and say, Sheila has 3rd period off and Jordan has 3rd period math class or 3rd period PE class. I partner Sheila in with Jordan, and she goes to class with her instead of a paraeducator. And then year 3 is very similar to that. And then this year, for the first time, we're able to have student interns. And student interns, we either front loaded their schedule or backloaded their schedule, and they did anywhere from 2 to 4 periods a day of just supporting their friends. And we were so, as many of you probably know, short-staffed throughout our district, that I actually had kids going to our feeder elementary schools and supporting kids. And so it was really beautiful. And I think, yeah, I don't know, I could talk about it for hours, but just some of the really cool things, and you can see from the pictures, is it's just a natural relationship. And when I go in and I observe them, because I have to give them a grade, I think one of the best things about it is other kids are supporting them because it's a peer and it's not an adult barrier. So there's times where I have this young man is a hockey player, really big hockey player at our school, and he couldn't always go because he was gone for hockey. And by the end of the semester, the teacher would email me and say, hey, I know Charlie's going to be gone tomorrow, but so-and-so is already ready to go. We're good. And I'm like, all right, one less schedule change for me. And things like that. And so just really beautiful things. My principal would stand up here and tell you all about how much money we've saved him within like the $100,000 and multiple FTEs. This year we had 44 hours a day covered by students. And next year I will have 65 plus. So it's a really beautiful thing that can take place. And one thing I should say is in year 1, students are quote unquote expected, because it is a class and I have to give them a grade, to do 20 hours of outside of school time with a mentee, or we like to say a friend, where they're going to football games and that kind of thing. They journal about it. So if they have questions, we then attack that as a class. How do we, go about this in a social situation, those types of things. And every single year, my favorite thing is by the second or third month of school, boy, do I have to keep journaling. I don't journal to you about my friends. You do because I have to give you a grade, but thank you. And so, but they're friends. It's not surface level. It's a true friendship because you've given them the education and the why behind it. And so that's really exciting for me. And now we have an educational pathway this year. My kids will be getting dual credit, which is super exciting. So what we talk a lot about is don't make it an assignment or a project, because humans are not assignments or projects. Our two big things are we care more and we show up and we keep showing up. Because a lot of times in the world of individuals with disabilities, you show up when you get paid, but then you exit. So how do we show up and keep showing up? This is a prime example. Every year around Christmas, break time, when kids return from college, we do a Friendsgiving, and we invite every kid, mentor, mentee who's ever been in the program. And we end up with 70, 80 people back at the high school, having fun, having a potluck, all the things, play really ridiculous games, that kind of thing. So it's just really fun and awesome. And a motto, it didn't get switched, Roxanne. That's supposed to have 2 T's. It's okay. Our motto is what we stand for drives everything else we do. And so if we're going to stand for inclusion and what inclusion truly looks like, that is going to be the driving force behind what we do every single day in class, outside of class, at the basketball game, all of that kind of stuff. In the middle 2 pictures are from our senior banquet this year, and I didn't have to send any staff. And we had 5 kids who probably in the typical, which I hate to say that, but typical world of special education would have needed staff, and I didn't have to send any because it's a culture change. We've changed the culture and the outlook for our students. And I think lastly, the culture changes we've seen. General education classes, most of my students with disabilities are only in 1 to 2 special education classes, depending upon their IEP. The rest of the time they are out in PE, weights, math, art. I mean, the list could go on. Think of an elective. Hallways, they're not just more welcoming for our students with disabilities, they're more welcoming in general. And Jordan will talk more about this in her research. Student sections, as you can see, there's lots of pictures of student sections being led, and our kids are just immersed. You don't ever know that they're just not included, I guess. And the lunchroom, I talked about, there's no longer a special education table or area. Our kids are just immersed. I had a kid this year that his mom finally reached out to me and he's like, will you please tell Charlie to stop taking Jordan out to lunch every single day? He's wasting so much money, because they would literally go to McDonald's every day. But yeah, that's the beauty of it. And yeah, the football team, I don't know, I could talk for hours and hours about the stories, but there is a video at the end where you'll get to hear from some of my students. But the most powerful thing I can say as a teacher is just do it. It was scary. I looked at her and I'm like, I don't know what I'm teaching. What am I doing? Like, this is a class kids have to get credit for. And when it comes to the class, my principal and my counselors and I sat down and went through our Department of Public Instruction and the course codes and figured out which course code matched the syllabus that I had come up with. And then we took that to our Department of Public Instruction for them to approve it. and then it had to go through our school board and all of that. And originally kids had to like apply. Now it's just in our student handbook for any kid to register for with a description. So I don't know.
No, like.
It's an elective underneath like a leadership code of some sort because it's called peer-to-peer leadership. And I will tell you, most of my general education students will tell you they walk away feeling as though they learned so much more than quote unquote having being the teachers or the mentors. They felt like they were the mentees learning. So yeah, I think that's my last slide before Sheila goes. So this year, dual credit, my students in year one will get a credit for their, for when you go into teaching or social work or anything, exceptional children class, like your 101. And then my year 2 and 3 students will get practicum credits. And then my interns will get a intern business credit thing. I don't remember exactly, but they put college credit. That's all I have. I could talk a lot longer.
Yeah.
Yes. So hi, I'm Anastasia from Vermont. I have the displeasure of being from the only school district that does not have a budget at this time. And so
I want to go there.
yeah, my eyes lit up when I heard about the savings. One thing I'm curious about is sometimes I see like a maternal relationship with my son and his paraeducators, and he's younger. He's just turned 10. I'm curious about the dynamic, if you see a different dynamic between a traditional paraeducator and then a student paraeducator. Do both for like, do you see students wanting to strive more because they have a student peer, and then also less maybe maternal stuff, like less support, but in a good way? Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely. We see kids who they actually want to go to class, where sometimes when they're with the adult paraeducator, they don't necessarily want to go because they kind of have that, I don't know if you want to say maternal or whatever, but we have higher achieving scores. Our kids are scoring higher. They are making progress on their progress reports at a much greater and faster because they're right alongside their peers. And I do have some peer-to-peer year 2, 3 interns that do go into some of our special education, like math classes and support in there. And that's where we've also seen massive growth because their peer is learning like the life skill of using a debit card alongside of them. So I don't know if that helps. I will say, we have seen really great success with my husband we have a course called Algebra 1 year 1. So it's algebra split into 2 years for some of our like English language learners, some of our learning disabilities, and just some of our kids who need a slower pace. And we were short paras, and I had 2 really strong kids in math, and I was like, here you go. And my principal actually came in, and I should have got it from him, but videoed one day those 2 supporting, and those are kids that they had never supported in like year 1, but it was like a beautiful classroom. So.
Hi, I'm Rachel from Nebraska. I'm a parent. I have a son who's 16 with nonverbal autism. I think sounds amazing. My question is, did you have pushback from your administration and from the general education parents as you started, and how did you address that and overcome that?
I cannot say I had pushback from administration because they sat at the table with me. So that was huge and amazing. And my principal always jokes, if Sarah says something, I'm just going to go and we'll figure it out later, which is amazing. And I know that's not how it is everywhere. I will say that was the one thing, and I have talked about with Roxanne, when we sat around the table back in 2014, we had special educators, administrators, parents of kids with disabilities. The one thing I wished we would have had is parents of kids without disabilities. But I think what we tried to do really well those first 2 or 3 years is I sent home a very explicit letter about this is what the classes that your kid is signed up for. Here's going to be the expectations. If you ever have any questions, please ask. And I do have parents that ask questions. And Sheila's going to talk about the middle school model a little bit, but for me at the high school, if they're going to a football game, Johnny's picking up Joe and they're going to the football game. There are some parents who will say like, hey, we'll meet you there, but that's the parent's choice too. But a lot of times my kids are, and my principals, everybody always asks, what about liability? All of that kind of stuff. And my principal's answer is, it's a friend. That's what they're doing. They're going with a friend. And so, knock on wood, we haven't had any issues with that piece of it.
I was just curious, what you've seen data wise with students with behavior, and have you seen improvement with that aspect?
I don't know if you're talking any about that at all. My lovely Jordan, is going to talk to you all about the research because I could give you all the good feeling goods. And then we've said for years, we need to quantify this. That's where Jordan came in. I can't like say data wise, but what I can tell you is the amount of IEP meetings I've sat in where we've completely removed a behavior plan from a student's plan because he or she is now supported by peers and we don't need it. And it's pretty powerful. And parents are like, what? We're like, no, really. I mean, I have data to show the parents, but I don't have data here to show you guys. But yeah, we see a major decrease in behaviors when, yeah.
You really dropped the mic. People online too. In the middle school, again, it's not a number you can quantify, but when I am working with 13 and 14-year-olds and I have a teacher call up from English for a kid who's got an IQ that's off the charts, but struggles with behavior, to say, hey, can Cam come down and work with Jude today in English? That's pretty crazy to me. And I have that happen all the time with, or in science, same thing. Can you come down and work with, this experiment's going to go a lot better if she comes down and works with Trey today, would that be okay? So we have that all the time. And it blows my mind with 8th graders that the teachers will call out and say, hey, can so-and-so come down?
Yeah. Oh gosh. Yeah, I'm going to let Sheila go. If anybody has questions, I realize I didn't put my information anywhere in this PowerPoint, but I can gladly write it down. I am a giver. Sheila can attest to that. I just say, here you go. But Sheila's going to talk about the middle school model.
I'll talk really fast. How fast do I have to talk? Okay, I'm Sheila Peterson. I teach at Walker Middle School in Bismarck, North Dakota. My story is a little different. I am not a special educator, but I think all educators are, right? And so my principal came up to me with 2 weeks before school got out and said, we want to teach peer-to-peer as a class. Can you do it? And I was like, sure. And then I said, as long as I can go up and talk to Sarah. So I started with Sarah. And I'm a big, just like her, you just leap and you'll figure it out on the way. Oh, did I get it? There we go. Some of the things we do in our class is inclusion obviously is the main goal, but we don't want it to be a power imbalance, right? I talk to my kids about like, you're here to be a conduit of friendship. So that song, like you make milkshake brings people to the yard. That's really what that peer's job is to help other people see the beauty. Service is another big aspect of our grade level. So we try to do service, at least 2 service projects each semester. Biggest thing, and it's interesting for the mentors to start to notice too, is that sometimes our mentees are like, will you go get this for me and go get that for me? And will you go do that for me? And it's like, no. We're all going to be of service. And so that's something that we try to do is 2 service projects every semester. Advocacy, we host at least 2 disability awareness events. I don't really like saying awareness, and I know that sounds bad, but more like celebration. So this year I have a child on the spectrum, and one thing that really stuck out to me is that she just wants to be treated like everybody else. Oh, it is raining in here. So
anyways, I always come in with that mindset is like, how does every kid just be every kid, right? So, like we just had a neurodiversity palooza, right? That's quite a name. And I remember a mom coming in with her daughter, and I looked at her daughter, and she reminded me so much of my daughter at her age, and she was on fire, running from thing to thing to thing to thing, and having a blast. The mom being like, "I'm so sorry," and I'm like, "Why are you sorry?" I'm like, "Let her go." And she's like, "What do you mean?" And I'm like, "That's what this is for. We're celebrating, right?" And we want this to just be a normal thing in our community. And then leadership, the goal is for my eighth graders, like I said, yes, you have a mentee, and I don't want them ever to be, I'm here to help somebody. That's not it at all. I love the growth that they make from the beginning and the end and watching them transform as humans. And you see my little guy, Ethan, right here in the blue. He is a mentee. Mom and dad still want him to remain as a mentee, but little do they know that he does a lot of mentoring. And so sometimes you'll have parents, and she kind of talked about that, like, well, I don't think my kid could be a mentor. And you're like, they're quite capable. I mean, my guy, he makes sure I haven't forgotten EP about 64 times. He's like, I got EP, Miss Peterson. I'm like, thank you, Ethan. And so we try to develop that leadership. My kids, when they come in as eighth graders, they have to start with just trying to communicate with them is really tough. So it's like, you got to accept everything's done on calendar invites and Google for my mentors. So they've got to accept and decline things. We've got a document for mentee mentor coverage. So if a kid's going to be gone, they go in and fill out that they're going to be gone and where to find that kid. And another kid jumps right in. Like, they're all, my mentee's gone today, so I'm going to go over to art with, and they'll just stop me in the hallway and be like, I'm going over with George today. I'm like, okay, cool. And these 14-year-olds and 13-year-olds are just figuring it out on their own. Trying to go as fast as I can. Come on, clicker. I wonder if I miss. Oh, take a breath. Here we go. Okay, so our class motto that we kind of go by is leadership is a privilege to better the lives of others, for both mentor and mentee, right? Like, we try to teach all of our kids, if we're at an event, we're having fun, it's how can I help? What do you need? And trying to get them to think that in that mindset. For mentors, every spring, our school really supports it, and they're really it's really important to our teachers in our school that we have the kids that the hearts are really in it, not because it is a lot of fun. So we do, I do an introduction to everybody in the 7th grade. I send out a Google form to all of the kids in the 7th grade, and then they can fill it out. I have interest. I want to be a mentor. I don't have interest, or I would like a mentor, because you think you can identify the kids who need it, and sometimes you miss kids completely. They then fill out the applications, which is good because then they have to do a little bit of work. They can't just go jump into this class. And it's a lot like a job interview. They have to get references and all those things. And then after I get all those applications, I take and put all the kids in a spreadsheet. I look through absences. I look through any like log entries, that kind of stuff. And then their teams rate them on a 5-point scale and 5 criteria. It's like leadership, inclusivity, organization, all these things, because their application could look good, and I don't see all those kids in the gym. Everybody looks like they're superstars, right? So so I have had kids that have 4.0s and never had a write-up, and their team would not recommend them to be mentors because they were like mean girls. And the surprising thing is I had one of their moms for conferences this year. The younger sister came in, I was sweating bullets, but the mom was like, no, I understand. I know who my kid was. I know why she wasn't picked. Like, they understood. But our teams really hold, like, if there's a kid on that list, usually there's about 5 kids that I think, from what I've seen them do in a gym and outside of the regular ed classroom, I see it in them. So there are kids I will go advocate for it. You know, my guy Caden, well, he was kind of jacking around at the end of 7th grade. And so they turned around and they gave him a really bad rating, and I went and advocated. And sometimes they go, okay, we'll give him a chance. So then those kids that are on the line, I usually put in second semester. So I'll bring those kids in and say, listen, you were on the line, because they need to know that, right? And if this is something that's really that important to you, you've got to have it together for a semester. And then I'll go back to the 8th grade teams first semester and say, hey, how is Caden doing? And they're like, oh, okay. And usually it helps that kid kind of square it away and be a little bit more responsible. So once that process is done, mentees could be, you know, we've had parent requests. Again, kids could request in the form. Sometimes in the middle of the year, we add mentees because teams say, hey, this kid is lacking belonging. And we think they'd just be a little bit more successful if they felt like they were part of the team. So we've added kids due to that. And then case managers can nominate kids. And so what I do after the nominations go is I figure out how many mentors I need to have. So the first year of this class, we had 15 mentors, 15 mentees. Right now for this year, we have, I'll have 75 mentors, and I will have 45 mentees. And then at semester time, a new crew of mentors will come in. The way we talk about it is it's like a drop of water, right? You do the science experiment. If we take a drop of water and I dye it purple, and one drop, the water starts to get a little darker, and then a darker and darker and darker. So I talk to the kids. I'm like, hey, you believe this way? They're like, yeah, I believe this way. I'm like, okay, I got to do whole numbers here because I'm not that smart. So just give me a break. But let's just say there's 50. Let's just say there's 50 of us, right? There's 50 of us taking this class. They're like, yeah, Miss Peters. I'm like, okay, there's 400 kids in your grade. So 50 kids believing this way. What's the statistic on that? Where are we at? 1/8, right? So 1/8 of the population's believing this way. So now if you talk one more kid into that, this is cool. Now we got 100 kids. Now we got a quarter of the grade. And if those guys get somebody else, and since you can spread your sphere of influence really quickly. One of the cool stories we got is my guy Tally. And oh my, I love Tally. I'm sorry. All these kids were going to high school next year, and I'm very sad about this. And so my guy Tally, when he first came, he's on the spectrum, but he didn't really talk a lot. But Tally's like a genius. But you don't know Tally's a genius because the way Tally was carrying himself. So anyhow, the kids got to know my guy Charlie, and Charlie's like, Mrs. Peterson. And I'm like, yes. He goes, I want to hang out with Tally at the trampoline park. I'm like, okay. And he's like, well, what do I do? And I'm like, well, what do you do when you want to hang out with your other friends? Well, I call their moms, or I call my friend. So one thing that we do when you talked about liability, and there's some of those questions, and I'm talking really fast, so tell me if it's too fast, but I'm excited. When parents sign up, so all parents have to go through a Google form to sign their kid up. Any kid can have a mentor, but you've got to get that done. So on there, it talks about like, does your kid have any restroom requirements? Do you understand that if it's an after school hours that we won't have an aide provided, but if you would like to come, a lot of times we recommend to parents, if it's a movie and you want to sit out in the lobby, go ahead. If you want to go to McDonald's and tell the mentee or the mentor, like, hey, just text me, I'm right across the street. So we ask those questions so that they understand, because we're 13 and 14-year-olds are a little different than 16, 17, 18-year-olds. We also have them acknowledge that I understand that if we go to an event after school hours, it's up to you if they go. Everything's a want to, nothing is a have to. And we may not have the coverage. So if you feel like your kid needs eyes on them all the time, I can't guarantee if it's an outside of school hours thing. And so then the parents make decisions. But a lot of times the best part is when a parent comes to the door and they're like, well, Bella's data first. I love it because the biggest goal is for every kid just to be every kid, right? Like so parent comes and like, okay, I'm here to drop off Bella. What do I do now? And I'm like, well, you leave. And he's like, okay, I'm just going to go over like Holiday and get a slushie quick. And I'm like, no, go away. And then he's like, he doesn't even know me. And I'm like, yeah, just leave. They're like, really? I can just leave. They should never have that experience that your kid was safe. And literally we got the kids when our kids are doing events, they're planning the events. I'm really just there to facilitate. I always call it like lifeguard duty. Like you make sure we got the doors covered, right? And then the adults are kind of just on the outside, making sure everything's going okay. But the kids are running the show. So that's kind of, that's the biggest thing we try to do in my class. Okay. Expectations for my mentors. So we go through leadership training the first 2 weeks before they get out into the wild. We do FERPA training with them, and they have to sign a FERPA document. Their parents also have to sign off on it. When we do the application, their parents have to sign off. So the parents know exactly 100% what they're getting their kid into. We always tell the kid if there's a FERPA violation, you're automatically out. And it also can be a legal issue for you because you are divulging. My 8th graders do know a lot about these kids, just like a teacher would. When the parents fill out the form to enter the class, as far as the mentee side, I ask them what level of information they're comfortable with us sharing. Most parents say you can let them know whatever they need to know. After we get through that, 2 days a week, I'll meet with my mentors, and then 3 days a week, they'll push out just like Sarah's high school kids. And they'll go to class with those kids and they'll do whatever they're doing. A lot of times teams will even call me or send me a message like, we have a field trip next week. Can I take Tally's mentor with? Or I'll just put out an all call like Leopards have a field trip next week. If it's your mentee going, you have first dibs, right? But if somebody can't go, because the other thing is we miss a lot of school just because we're doing lots of fun things. Say a kid goes, hey, I've got a big test. I cannot go on that field trip. I get like 6 emails. Well, if so-and-so can't go, I'd like to go. And so we utilize the kids that way too, to help out. And then field trips go so much better. Because if you think about how overstimulating a lot of times it can be, or trying to keep up can be kind of a overwhelming thing for kids. And so we just partner them up. We try to have once a month, because middle school is a little different. We got to provide the opportunity versus high school. They kind of just it ebbs and flows. So once a month, the kids plan a night. So it might be open gym night. It might be board game night. I hate winter party. I'm trying to think all the other things we've done. Movie night. I mean, we just kind of put, so each school, we have 3 middle schools in our district. So every month we just rotate. And then the other thing that we do at the middle school levels, we also utilize some of our colleges. So like to make it a little more fun, like the Adaptive Phi Ed program out at University of Mary will actually come in and put on one of our game nights. And so they'll design a bunch of different places and we just let the kids like free range roam. We don't overschedule anything. Nothing is really like when we have game night. And again, it's rotate wherever you want to go. Everything is if you want to. We try to do a mixer events in school, out of school. And then my kids, those 2 days that I'm with them after the first 2 weeks, a lot of it is like, Miss Peterson, we want to have Monday Night Football. Can we have Monday Night Football night? Sure. You guys got to plan it. Oh, okay, cool. So they figure out where they're getting pizzas from. They figure out what day we're going to have it. They figure out who's got the subscription to the Prime. They do all the things. I just show up to the events. My goal is to go from teacher to facilitator as fast as possible and letting the kids drive exactly what we're going to do. I would say for my teaching career, it's been really good for me because to see the beauty in these kids and the wonderful things they're doing for one another. The other really cool thing is that sometimes we have events that are just mentors only. And my kids have started to say, why aren't our mentees coming, Mrs. Peterson? You know, because we will invite the mentees, but we'll say parents, you know, just because this is going to be kind of a crazy event, like say we're doing a trunk or treat or something like that, where maybe we're a little worried about like, how am I going to keep eyes on everybody and manage all this stuff? And so we'll say, hey, parents, we're having this event. Please, you know, come with everybody. And my mentors now are like, well, why isn't everybody just coming? And the fine line I have to walk is I have to make sure like I'm always trying to support my 8th graders, right? So they're not nervous or scared because this is new to them. This is a lot for them to learn. And I know that if I put too much on them, they're going to panic. Right. And so I always want to make sure they're supported. So it was really cool to get to the point where the kids are like, well, no, shouldn't everybody be there? And I'm like, well, yeah, in my mind they should, but I wanted to get you guys to the point where I never want it to be a have to. It's always got to be a want to. Does that make sense? I think. Benefits to our mentors. We teach that people first language, seeing your person before their disability. And the cool thing I love about these pictures here, that picture in the middle is not all my peer-to-peer kids. Okay, I got a couple of mentees in there. I got a couple of mentors, but I got other kids that they're just joining. It's just become part of the like, yeah, you can sit with us. Yeah, you're one of our guys. Yeah, oh, he is funny. I love that kid, you know? And so they start to see things because we talked about that sphere of influence. And then we try to host 2 sporting events a semester. So we do soccer in the fall and then we do a big wiffle ball game in the spring. And then we always try to end the year with picnics or we have a little local amusement park, but fun is really important. I don't spend as much time. Like I said, I'm not a special education teacher. I teach my kids more of like, here's all your resources. The document that I give my kids all access to is all the information those parents fill in the form, the phone numbers, their addresses, the information because the parents fill out, these are the things you need to know about my kid. And they also have access to case management and the case management knows that they signed FERPA. So when a kid comes to me and goes, what do I do when Hayden da? And I'm like, well, did you go talk to Mrs. Brecht? And she's like, well, no. I said, well, I know Hayden and I taught Hayden in PE, but you know who the expert is? You know, go see Mrs. Brecht or go see Mrs. Hanson down in the ED room, go see so that they can start getting those. And then the other thing is we try to bring all the different areas in to speak to our kids so that they can create those relationships. And then our mentors will often make the social stories before we go on a field trip. And then we'll bring the mentees and mentors together the day before the field trip and kind of walk through like, here's what's going to happen on the field trip. Here's things you might see. I don't write those stories at all. The kids in my class write all of the social stories and do that to prepare them. I think that's about it. I think I gave you everything in like questions. Yes. Who wants to go first? Go ahead. Yeah.
District approve a budget. So is this like based on the parents or how are you funding these events?
$1,000 out of my pocket and my teaching partner probably too. We write our school. Yeah. Don't tell my husband. He's like, how much did we get from Amazon? I go on Donors Choose. Last year I asked on Donors Choose, I got a whole bunch of food sent to me from somebody in the United States. I don't even know who it was. Just all these boxes started showing up that I asked for things. Our school has foundation grants that are like $250 for innovation. So we can usually only apply for those once. So I've done all of those grants that we can do. Our friend Julie here holds all the purse strings on our DD council. So we're working on that. That's what we were picking her brain about over there. Like, how much money really can I have? And just trying to keep an eye on, we're partnering with Special Olympics, and I would be, well, it's not, it should be done, but it's a situation right now. But in North Dakota, and I would assume in Nebraska, probably something similar, but there's a scale that if you sign on to be a school partner with them, you'll start out with $2,000 your first year, then it's $1,500, then it's $1,000, then it's down to $500. Everybody thinks it's like a ton of work to do, and that's what we're having to try to talk our administrators in right now, because they're like, what's the catch? But there's not a catch. You have to fill out the demographic information about your school. You have to do these like 3 coaching courses that I got done in an hour. And then the thing that they require is you have to have one disability, like whole school disability awareness event, which we already do like 4 or 5. Like we run our own buddy walk at our school. Spread the word is for our whole school. We do neurodiversity experience for our kids, kind of like a Van Gogh experience that you walk through. We do a CP awareness. I mean, we're just naturally doing those things anyway. So that's already done, right? 1. 2, you got to have some social events. Well, guess what? Peer-to-peer social events all the time, right? So that's already done. And then the third thing was some type of inclusive sport activity, but it does not have to be a season. She has seasons. We just do we just bring all the middle school district kids together a couple times a year and do kind of like a jamboree basically. So we've actually already completed what we need to have done before we've even signed the agreements. It's just that everybody's like, what else? What's the catch? But there's really not a, yes, please.
And one thing we do at the high school a lot is when we do our like awareness, like we do spread the word, we do buddy walk, all that kind of stuff too, is I'm wearing one because my other shirt had a hole in the armpit. But my students design shirts every year and then we sell them to the whole our feeder system and that's we try to take a little bit of profit from that as well. So but no, but they like to talk about how great this program is, but no, they do not fund it.
We've got 5 pillars in our district.
Inclusion's one of them.
Sticker that goes on everything and inclusion is one of them.
And we're talked to often about it. And we're like,
yeah. And I'm like, teacher of the year this year, so I thought I'd have like a little extra pull. And every time I go to talk to our superintendent, he's like, well, we've got these buckets of.
yeah.
If we take money out of this bucket, then there's not, I actually had to cut 4 field trips for next school year. Also, I had to be a little bit more creative in how we're gonna do.
Yeah. And my husband's with Sheila's husband. Stop sending me.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Was there
Are there other questions?
From Reno, Nevada. My question was, I know that you were saying for high school you had the dual credit, but for middle school, is it extracurricular? Is that, so I didn't follow along or hear what it was for middle school. I'm sorry.
I'm talking super fast, so I'm surprised. I'm just kidding. No, it's just a class kids like to take. It's an elective. So her feeder middle school used to have it, they kind of like an adaptive PE type of thing. And like for me, just with my background with my daughter and Sarah and I both talk, and I'm like, even though I'm the PE teacher, I don't want to have a class that's just special for this, right? Like I want to see full integration. And so that's why we kind of follow a model like hers. And I know it sounds crazy, like 13-year-olds and 14-year-olds are running around and doing this, but they are doing a really like, okay, I was gone 36 days last year from school to travel and do all the other stuff. My kids were getting like all those days I was gone, I didn't have a sub cover in my class. Those kids just pushed out those days and I never once got a phone call or an email that Bob or Sally wasn't over here. You occasionally in middle school, I usually lose about 2 mentors a year, right? But that's the nature of their age group too, right? But I usually lose 2 and it's never has anything to do with my class or that they did something wrong or posted something. It usually has to do with something that they get in trouble for outside of the realm of our class. Mm-hmm. Yes, ma'am.
I don't think I need that. I can talk later.
Yeah.
It's for the caption.
Oh, sorry. So my other question is as you're saying that the kids are running it themselves, what do you think is giving them the buy-in? Because I heard you say at one point that they actually like email and fill out the forms, like I'm not coming, but somebody else is filling in for me because I have a 14-year-old and a 12-year-old, and just getting her to reply to
emails for school that she needs to do what she's just supposed to do on a bare minimal?
Yeah.
It's rough.
So, it depends on the kids. Some are really good at it, but it is also each week they have a learning log. And we have a rubric we grade them on. And one of their grades, or one of the parts of the rubric, has to do with communication. And so like everybody should get an A all the time, right? All you got to do is make sure you're communicating. So we have those conversations, and I do try to meet with them at least once a quarter to have a one-on-one with them. So on days that they're pushed out, I'll do quick 5-minute meetings and schedule them, and they'll just pop up to my class and then pop back out. The interesting thing too is my kids actually don't want to be in class with me. Like if they don't feel like we have a lot to cover, they'll be like, can we just push out? Because they really want to be out with we start 2 to 3, and then by the end of the semester, like the last 2 weeks, they're out 4 days and 1 day with me. Really, all I'm spending time with them once we get going, because a lot of their disability awareness stuff that they learn, it doesn't come from a presentation. It will come from like, we'll be planning Rock Your Socks at the same time as CP awareness, at the same time as neurodiversity. And so what we'll be doing is the kids will basically form committees, and they'll choose the one that they most have interest in. And I'll maybe give them like, here's the facts or the information you got to find. And then they all create their own presentations, and then they're in charge of designing that awareness day. All kids are in charge of helping support the day, but like how it's going to look, what kind of decorations, what kind of activities, the kids are all planning that. And I'm really just bebopping from table to table to see where they're at. And our neurodiversity day was like a carnival we planned. So it was, and then we had all of our providers come in. We partnered with the high school. So the high school kind of handled certain sides, and like our kids got to go out and be on the radio and do the media promotion. And they'd never done that before, like they were scared, and then they got it. You just see so many cool skills develop in both the mentor and mentee, that confidence, the ability to communicate. It's really neat. When they leave, they're like little high schoolers when they're done with, yeah. And not because of me, but yeah, sorry.
I just have one quick question. I told Julie I'd be quick. I'm Brooke from Iowa. So did you find in both the high school and middle school, are they doing things throughout the summer then too?
I can't speak for the middle school. My kids, I will say, are like, they're doing stuff throughout the whole year. I get pictures weekly. Hey, Bor, we're headed to Cherryberry. Want to meet us there? No, I'm at my own child's activity. But yeah, my kids it becomes just embedded within them. I told the story to these guys. It was like 2 weeks ago. I had a girl who was taking a couple of her friends to Buffalo Wild Wings, and he has a crush on this other girl. And anyways, he gave directions to Buffalo Wild Wings, and lo and behold, Elisa's like, Dawson, this isn't the way to Buffalo Wild Wings. He's like, we drove past JC's house. And so like, my kids are doing stuff throughout the whole. Yes, it's a grade. Mine looks a little bit different, especially now with dual credit. Like there are certain things I have to teach. But we have a lot of fun. Like my favorite part is when I talk to kids, they're like, we party every day. I'm like, can you make sure I don't lose my job? But we do have a lot of fun. But my kids are doing stuff throughout the whole, like like I'm not, and I can't go to every sporting event. I mean, I'm a mom of 3. No, I'm not running the program in the summer. They're doing it on their own. Yep.
And I think it just depends on the level of comfortability of the kid. Like I have some kids that I just ran into a kid at the Larks game, and the mom was like, oh my gosh, Braxton's over playing, they're playing ball with Ethan every night. So it just kind of depends, Hayden and her kids, I didn't know this, but the girls all picked her up and planned a surprise party for her. And the mom was just like over them, because it wasn't something we asked them to do or even told them. They knew it was her birthday. They planned it on their own. They got it all set up. So it just kind of depends on the comfortability level of the kid.
Yep.
I gotta go. I know.
Nope. We
We're
could just, I
after
was gonna say time check.
hours.
It's
Yes,
5:06.
Mandy's gonna go. Oh,
Yep. Hold on, I'm coming. I'm coming.
Hi, I'm from Nebraska, and we had a new thing start the last probably 2 or 3 years I was there of unified sports.
Mm-hmm.
And I've heard from a friend that I've met through the council that committee that they're starting to do like add speech and debate and that to that too. I was just wondering for other states, like your guys' state, have you guys had any unified sports or anything started for your schools?
yes, we do flag football in the fall.
We do bowling in the winter and we do wiffle ball and track in the spring. And our track runs right along our regular track. So oh yes, and we have thank you. We have United Sound, which is orchestra as well.
Oh, wow.
I am Mandy Eberly, and I'm here to talk about what we do at the college level. So I also am in Bismarck, same as these guys, but I work at Bismarck State College. So we run our peer-to-peer program. We call it BSC Peers. Stands for Bismarck State College. That's the college that I work at, through our student accessibility office. So I am also the person who does accommodations for all of our students. And then our peer-to-peer program is not an accommodation. It's just a group that we have that's optional. It's an extra support if students want to do it. So for college accommodations, that's where, like, if they need extended test time or technology. Where our peer-to-peer program, it's just a group if they want to be a part of it. We make sure everyone knows so they can participate as they would like to. We are grant funded, again, through the NACDD Council. And then we also look for funding too through other resources too. Like our college foundation has given us a little bit of money to help for things that we can't use federal funds for. Yes, and thank you. We are not a TIPSID program, so we have a little bit more flexibility when it comes to that area too. So our mentees are, again, students who are attending the college who would like support. It's nothing that they have to do. Again, it's not an accommodation, just an option if they would like to. We also have some that start receiving services and then naturally towards the end of the semester, they don't need the services. And that's what I always say at the beginning of the semester, let's get those heavy supports, make sure you know and have the resources to help you. And then they naturally sometimes fade out where students don't need it anymore because they've gotten the supports and they've learned the independence that's needed for their specific needs. Our mentors are student employees. So they, again, do earn student employee wages, $16 an hour to support students, or they can also be volunteers. Some people like to volunteer because they might not have time for employment. Others like to do the employment route because college is expensive, food's expensive, housing's expensive. So it is nice to be able to offer our college mentors that option to work for us. But again, both are BSc students and both really learn to help each other. Like these two beautifully described, yes, the students are receiving help, but also the students really are helping the mentors as they're learning life skills, leadership skills, alongside of the mentees who are also learning those leadership and life skills. So our program goal at our college is to help students acclimate, navigate, and experience the college. It can be really scary for students coming to a new environment. Everything's new, new transportation needs, new living environments. Some come from out of state, whole new state. They don't know where grocery stores are or any of those basic needs. New eating places for them, all the things. So we really want to just provide those supports to help them get into their routines, into new routines, and to be successful at college. Again, we do really focus on inclusion, awareness, and just being a group where they can come to us with any questions, and a safe place. We do focus on too, obviously getting them career ready. So when it comes to supports, we have many different options. Throughout those options, we have three main goals. We really try to help our students develop their self-awareness skills, self-determination, and then obviously that self-advocacy too. Learning to ask for things, learning to figure out how to navigate to find different resources so they can be successful at college, but also so they have the skills once they're in their careers so that they know what's available to them as well. So again, mentors can help with a variety. One of them being independent living. Last year, we had a student who was really struggling to keep his dorm room clean. The RAs were getting reports from other students like it's a little bit stinky, and he had the skills. It was just remembering. So we helped him get him into a routine. A couple of our mentors just went over there. They made it fun. They called it a cleaning party. We had a checklist made, and it was just simple things like, hey, did you take your trash out? Yep. Okay, did you check your fridge? Did you go through and throw your old food? No. So then they did that together, and it didn't last long. It took a couple weeks and they faded out once he got into that routine. So again, we really try to base our needs very much so about what the student needs, what they're looking for support in. At the beginning of the year, we have a back to school, well, actually at the beginning of each semester, we do a back to school social. So then the students bring their class list, or I can help them look it up. We kind of talk about what buildings they'll be in together with mentors. They just kind of naturally go in groups and go and find all their classrooms. Just then it eases some of that stress of the first day. Where is my class? What's it look like? Where do I want to sit? Then they know where their classrooms are, and just one less thing to worry and think about. We have been seeing more mental health needs, so we've done a lot more activities for that too. We've done like weekly yoga sessions. They wanted to do more than weekly, but we're working on finding scheduling, as college students often have class schedules, work schedules, family schedules. So really just trying to meet their needs and meet the students where they're at. Another one of our popular support requests is that academic help. We do have tutors on our campus for students, but sometimes they just like being with someone who's in the class or taking the class, and then they're a little more comfortable to ask for that help. So sometimes this can look at like one-on-one situations like pictured here. Other times we form study groups, especially with some of those science where it's very vocabulary heavy, where they just want to get together with someone again in that class and really review things and prepare for those exams. A lot of them like to create weekly to-do lists. That way they don't see all their homework and get overwhelmed. We talk about, okay, this is your plan for Monday. These are your 2 assignments that you need to do. Okay, Tuesday, let's do the discussion post. Wednesday, you study. Just kind of breaking it down into smaller steps. We do also help with campus employment. So if they have a job on campus, we have students or mentors, I should say, who can support them with that, from the application to talking about what are you going to wear to your interview, talking about possible interview questions that they might endure, and then helping them prep for the first day of work. Do you know where to go? Do you know who to ask questions to? One of our students did want support while she was working too, so we had a mentor support her while she was working her on-campus job. They made, again, another to-do list of things that they're going to do. They talked about who to go to if they finish the to-do list. If she does all of her things, well, she still has time. What do you do next? Who do you go to ask for more work? Kind of those things just to help her set up for success. And then again, we were able to fade the mentor out once the student felt comfortable on her own. So really, again, varies really much from student to student, what they're looking for support with. We do a lot of the social things, like these guys talked greatly about all the different activities. We do try to include students to get them involved on-campus activities that are already hosted, but some of our students, that can be just a little bit overwhelming, loud environments. So we also plan our own smaller environment activities on campus and without. This group really, this past year, liked to volunteer. So they did like 6 projects within the community, going to an animal shelter, cooking at the Ronald McDonald House, helping at a soup kitchen. Really, whatever they're interested in, they bring the ideas. We make a poll throughout Microsoft, and then they vote on what they want to do. They vote on the dates that work best for them, the times that work best for them. We use Microsoft the whole 365 to communicate. So we schedule things on the Outlook calendar for scheduling mentor sessions, and then we use Teams to communicate. So we talk about upcoming events, and then the day of, I also send additional reminders like, hey, this event's going on. So-and-so is going to be here if you'd like to pop by to enjoy. Kind of just, again, to encourage them to get out of their dorm room, partake in all the things the campus has to offer. So I talked a little bit about it. Here's a little bit of what what some of our mentors have said about it. Is this coming from me? Okay, I was like, I hope I didn't click the wrong thing. So again, just the leadership part, that yes, they are receiving additional support, but then also they're gaining those skills. So we have some mentor feedback as well. And then should we just bump to the next person? Okay.
We'll go quick. I can go a little off slides just because I do have so many resources for you guys. So I'll just explain myself a little bit, and then I'll explain the resources we have and do a brief overview just so we can save some time. Okay, so who am I? I am a former peer mentor with Century High School's peer-to-peer program. I joined in the 2nd year. As Roxanne had said, I was really good friends with Liz Ramonic, and so after I found out that a bunch of people get to have credits for hanging out with the people I already hang out with, I was like, oh, of course I have to join. And so my time in peer-to-peer was so impactful that I've carried it with me since. In college, I really didn't do much. I had a job as a DSP, working for a group home for individuals with disabilities, and that's kind of how I carried it on then. But when I started my PhD program, I looked around the campus. I had started my thesis project and it was on inclusive education programs. And I was like, oh my gosh, NDSU sucks. Like you don't see anyone with a disability anywhere on campus unless they're working in the dining center. And I thought that was really sad. And so in that program, I got talking with Roxanne Romanic actually, and she got me connected with at Minot State. They have the A-STEP program. Got talking with some people there, and the next thing you know, NDSU has an inclusive program as well. And so I just like a week ago became the program coordinator for that program. So full circle moment, like can't believe that that's where I've ended up now. But that's kind of my journey, and I have to say it's all because of peer-to-peer. Do you have a quick question?
No, I just wanted to say thanks so much for bringing that thing up, but
Yeah.
dang, because that is the one thing
Yeah.
we're bringing up in our disparities in our next 5-year plan is that people that employ other people, or a lot of people think all the people with special needs can do
Working,
stuff to help
yep.
with food and environment or dining environment or cleaning.
Yeah.
And everything else is rocket science.
Yeah. Yeah. Real problem. Yeah. So back to kind of my thesis project. So I'd already started researching peer-to-peer for my thesis, and then Julie just happened to have some money to expand the project. And so put in a bid, and here we are later with some money. So we collected school-wide surveys from 4 different schools who have a peer-to-peer model. And then we had a 5th school that we only collected data from mentees. And so about 3,000 students had the chance to take the surveys, and about 2,500 actually did complete them. And so an important thing to remember is that students have the autonomy to choose. And so mentors, mentees, general education students all got to say no if they didn't want to fill out our survey. So that's a really cool part about this that I feel like we don't emphasize is the right to say no to research. So that's fun. That's kind of our breakdown, like 260 mentors, 93 mentees, and that's about who this data is from. And so on your tables, let me pull this form right here, this side. Oh, wait, am I lying? Is this the right side? Is there another? Are we missing one? I have it at the, oh, there it is. Yeah. So these charts are on here. Thank you very much. This is some of the numbers. So all the complicated number stuff, we have like a write-up of some of the things that we found, the things that we thought were most important, and I can kind of highlight some of this right here. So we found that both mentors and mentees reported improvements in their academic skills. If you look here in this kind of gray color, those are our mentees. And so they reported it at a higher rate. Mentees were more likely to say that, yes, I've improved my academic skills as a result of the program. But as you can see, the majority of them are saying somewhat or yes to that. For this next one, it was looking at communication skills. And this one I think is really, really cool because we're seeing here, again, we have the majority and somewhat and yes. But mentors are saying that they have improved their communications much more and at a higher rate than the mentees. And in some interviews that we did, one of the major things that they said is, you know, I've never been so challenged to learn how to communicate with someone. And so it has pushed these students to grow, and they're taking it away from the classroom. And we're seeing that a lot in the interviews that were done. The next one was kind of the isolation and friendship section. So this one, again, another one that just gives me chills. So this question was, are students with disabilities isolated at your school? And as you can see, mentors in green, the vast majority say never, or sometimes to never. But if you look at, and then the other color is our general education students, they're saying sometimes and a little bit more heavily on the always side. So students who aren't in the peer-to-peer program are saying that students with disabilities are isolated at their school. But the mentors are saying the opposite. They're saying no, they're never isolated, or oh, maybe only sometimes, very rarely isolated. And it's amazing how much of a difference it is in the data of these students. Another really cool finding with that was the mentor. Same school. So this is all the schools, all the data. Everyone has peer-to-peer at their school. Yeah. Yeah, 4 schools that have peer-to-peer. Another thing was that mentors reported more than the general education students that they enjoyed interactions with students with disabilities, and they more frequently interacted with students with disabilities. And then the final one is, do you have friends because of peer-to-peer? Again, we see the majority say somewhat or yes. And then mentees at a higher rate reported that, yes, they do have friends because of peer-to-peer. So I thought that was really cool. Keeping it going, so we developed a best practice, which is another on one of the sheets. I think it's on the back of something. You would think I would know. But it should look exactly like this. There you go. You want to raise it for the group? Oh, it's on the back of that one. Of course it is. So we developed best practices for peer mentoring programs. We reviewed 145 articles. We did interviews with a bunch of different people, and we found that there are 4 different levels of best practices. So if you're looking to implement, these are just some things to keep in mind, and it'll kind of help you get started. And I won't go into too much detail. And then we also created the mini how-to. And so this came from, again, all of the data that we collected. And then with some of that additional research, we kind of gave some recommendations of curriculum, of activities to do. And hopefully that'll help you guys get started if this is something you want to do. Step 1 is super important. It's identify a motivated program leader. And I will kind of I guess, yeah, we'll start right here. One of the biggest things that people reported was the fact that the program leader was dedicated. It was someone identifiable in the school. It was someone people respected, and it was someone who was motivated. Change happens, and it takes a lot of power, and you need someone who is ready to take that on. And having connections within the school is one of the biggest ways to get that started. And you kind of find that with that program leader. And so that's what a lot of not only teachers, but students were saying. They're like, yep, the program leader is the reason why we're here today. So yeah.
One thing I would recommend, and 2 of our 3 middle schools are doing this, if you look at all the responsibilities on your special education staff, case management, IEPs, all of those things, the formula that we're following in 2 of the 3 is that the PE teacher partners with all the specialists. So Kim's taking care of the paperwork and the heavy stuff, and I'm taking care of the scheduling of the night and all that stuff. And we partner together. She's thinking about who needs coverage, what do they need when we go to these events. I don't worry about those things. We work together. We sit down once a week and go, what's happening this week? Who needs what for this event to make sure they're successful? I'm taking care of scheduling the field trip and the fun, you know what I mean? So it's a partnership, but it is, I think, a little harder, especially in the middle school, if it is all falling on the specialist. Because they're so under too much work and not enough people, right?
Yeah, so you guys can read through some of those steps. And then if you don't have any, like if there aren't enough pages at your tables, just let us know and we'll get that to you. And some of our interview quotes, these are themes that even today we've been hearing, the real connections. This quote was, we couldn't anticipate that students would basically start to see it not as a class anymore because they've just become friends. It's something we see across all data, interviews, surveys, everything that we see says that it's a genuine connection. This isn't just a class, it's something that goes way further. Another one is that natural peer support. This student had said mentors are way more natural than aides. Their support creates a natural learning process and a natural connection. Again, huge theme that you've been hearing today. It does become so natural. There's so much less facilitation than you expect as time goes on. You know, you get it started that year 1, and the next thing you know, it's spreading like a wildfire. And then finally, the changes in school culture. This student had said peer-to-peer connects the missing link between students with disabilities and students without disabilities to create a culture of inclusion. Sarah said it with the pep rally with the cafeteria. You know, it's just a huge change in the school, and it happens with the rest of the school. It doesn't just happen for students who are involved with peer-to-peer. And we're seeing that in the data as well. Here's a QR code for you guys to scan for that quantitative, the numbers, if you want to see that, but we should have printouts. And that's it from me.
We should probably take an opportunity to ask questions now because this was the really cool part with the research.
Anybody? A proud mom moment.
Questions for all of you. I don't want to take them.
Well, really, I am just here as,
the school culture. I'm wondering if students who are BIPOC or students that are LGBTQ, I don't know if the research looked at that. Was there more? You know, did it impact other students that are considered different? Did they show any more signs of inclusion, or just curious?
Yeah, well, we have not looked at that yet, but we do have some measures of like gender identity and race. But a priority was not to look at that right away. But stay tuned. I swear there's so much data that we have to look at. And the years to come, we're pushing out some papers and we're going to push out some more fact sheets. Yeah.
Last question. So I'm unfamiliar with your area, but are your schools demographically, how are they made? Are they like lower income, or like what's your schools look like?
Yeah. The high school that I'm at is originally, when we started 10 years ago, I would tell you, was our nickname is the Cake Eaters, if that tells you anything. Yep. Over here. She's from the other side of town. No. And so, but I will tell you that our demographic has drastically changed in the last 6-7 years. We have a higher population of free and reduced lunch, a higher population of English language learners, a higher like I taught a different leadership class, not peer-to-peer, that I think over probably 70% of it were students that were not born in America. And so our population has changed. When we started it, we were very much I don't know what to say, cake eaters, sure. Yeah. But I would say ours has changed and we've still seen great. Like this year, for example, I am teaching nothing but peer-to-peer. And I have to teach 5 classes, and I have 3 sections of year 1, and then my year 2, year 3 interns. I got all of my other classes taken away because it's so much. Hers.
My school is the school where people go, "You work where?" It's true, but I love it. I'm like, come to my school. I can't wait to blow the doors off, you know? But we're pretty diverse. We're the most diverse, I would say, in Bismarck. Bismarck's a town of about 80,000 people. And so you have a variety, you know, like our ML learners come from all over the world. Our indigenous population is, you know, in my school, there's a pretty strong indigenous population as well. So I would say Walker is about as diverse. And we have kids who live in $1 million homes, and then we have kids that don't have windows in their trailer house. I have 43 couch surfers that don't have a place at all. They're just living from, so we're 2 completely different schools that you're seeing that work in both schools.
Mike Holder's privilege from Kristen from Delaware. Your population size is similar to Delaware, although your state's much larger. How many students are in each of your schools, would you say?
I have about 1,500 in my high school.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's big.
1,100 in my middle school.
Okay. We've got like 300-400 kids in some
yep.
schools.
Yeah,
And some we've got like 3,000. So it is a big
We have
span.
like 3 middle schools,
Yep.
3 high schools of that same size. So
Yes.
all 3 middle schools are about 1,100.
Gotcha.
All 3 high schools are about 1,500.
Gotcha.
So
okay.
it's just split up.
So to scale, I'm thinking how to scale this.
Yep.
Thank you.
There are schools in North Dakota that have 100 students in the entire
Yeah.
district. Right.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I'm talking about for the whole school.
Yeah.
K through 12.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Mhm. Yeah. And I have about 5 years ago, Julie had me do a training for schools around the state of North Dakota. And I had schools that were anywhere from 100 students in the whole school, K-12, to like Fargo, which would be similar to my size at that training. And they were able to, all those schools have been able to do some form of what we do. Yeah.
We are at the end of our time. And so in respect to all of you, I think anybody that's interested in continuing to ask questions certainly can stay and we can visit. You can also email and get in touch with us otherwise and continue conversations. And if you also want to, we have a couple videos you could stay and watch.
And I will tell you, if anybody wants, I can give like, and I know like our information isn't on here, but I also have, and I know Sheila does too, but I have a Facebook page that is ran by my students. I have access, so I can delete anything that is not, but a Facebook and an Instagram, and you really get a great view of what we do on a daily basis through there. And if anybody does want to stay, like I know Lori has a quick 4-minute video and I have a 12-minute video my students put together and sent to me because they were like, we have to tell people in Washington DC what we're doing. So if anybody wants to stay, and I'll upload it to our Facebook page as well, but it's pretty sweet.
Sent. You guys.
So while she's talking, I'm gonna find the Facebook group for my family, and then we have Walker Middle School peer to peer. So if you just search by that, WACHTER.
And mine is, yeah, sure. Mine is peer-to-peer leadership, Century High, or peer-to-peer leadership CHS. And this is what we look like currently, if you can see that. But yeah, but you'll see lots of really cool stuff. But if anybody wants to stay, Lori and I can share our videos too, because I think the students' voices are super powerful. So